Hello and welcome to Winning in South Africa. My name is Anna and I am of AG Consulting. Welcome to my corporate strategy for re-entering South Africa with Kraft Heinz. Kraft Heinz is a leading food and beverage brand around the world. Based jointly in Chicago and in Pittsburgh, Kraft Heinz is the 5th largest food and beverage company in the world, with over 40 countries of dedicated employees. You have $8 billion brands with a total of over 25 around the world. The Kraft Foods Heinz 2015 merger positioned the company for optimal growth in emerging markets. So let's look at an organizational snapshot. Kraft Heinz has a long-term competitive advantage in the industry. Globally, you have 200 brands that compete in over 125 different food and beverage categories. It's a strong mix of global platforms and local brands that give you an advantage in driving future profitable growth going forward. Your portfolio is full of heritage brands that resonate strongly and have established personalities and rituals with consumers. They are staples in their households. Many are synonymous with categories such as cheese, ketchup, nuts, quick meals, cold cuts, frozen potatoes, and lunch combinations. You have a strong global footprint. You have a large and global footprint of $26 billion in annual sales, 83 factories with employees on the ground in more than 50 countries. Your portfolio has 98% household penetration and over $3 billion in annual sales in North America alone. Outside of North America, Kraft Heinz is recognized as the #1 player in the ketchup category. In almost every country you can find the brand, and it holds the #1 or 2 market share position. Kraft Heinz has strong brand awareness in many international markets, but it is yet to have a strong presence in retail in those markets. You have unique opportunities for global expansion. At the same time, you are underrepresented in the food service channel of many markets where you have a strong retail presence. There are many key emerging markets where there are amazing opportunities to expand. Your ownership and incentive structure at Kraft Heinz is unmatched. Berkshire Hathaway and 3G Capital are major shareholders with a proven track record of building and expanding iconic consumer brands. They are long-term owners with an unlimited horizon, and Kraft Heinz only invests in well-positioned brands with profitable long-term growth and successful brand building. However, you recently have had a 30% drop in stock, as well as focused on a cost-cutting strategy. This isn't working, at least in South Africa. It's time to get back to the roots of strategy, investing in innovation and getting back to what the consumer wants. Refocus your marketing and reconnect with the customer. So let's look at industry analysis. Kraft Heinz has the #1 or 2 position in about 60 core categories in over 50 countries. On average, you have more than 2 times the share of the nearest branded competitor. In 14 international markets, you have 80% brand awareness. In the cheese production industry specifically, the industry revenue is forecast to grow over the next 5 years due to rising disposable income in emerging markets and favorable shifts in consumer trends, which will boost demand for cheese. The continued product innovation will also bolster spending on cheese in saturated markets, leading a 2.8% annualized revenue increase to $114.1 billion over the 5 years to 2022. Growing demand for cheese and producers' transition to higher value-added products that sell for a premium are expected to enable companies to achieve higher profitability over the next 5 years. Industry revenue and profitability are largely guided by the price of milk, the key input in the production of cheese. Milk prices have been particularly volatile over the past 5 years, rising by double digits in 2014, then declining sharply in the following years. Global milk prices are expected to remain low in the near future, driven by continued global overcapacity. Furthermore, the European Union, the largest producer and consumer of dairy products, recently lifted a quota on milk production that has been in place for over 30 years. The end of the milk quota will ultimately boost exports from the EU and enable European operators to compete more effectively in the global market. However, as European milk producers will no longer be constrained by production allocations, European dairy producers are likely to continue to boost production capacity, which will place downward pressure on global milk prices. Although these trends will decrease purchases costs for cheese producers and boost profitability, lower milk prices will also constrain industry revenue growth. Accordingly, industry revenue is expected to rebound only moderately in the coming years as industry operators continue to contend with low dairy prices. The cheese production industry also has continued medium globalization. Dairy products are generally difficult to trade because they are perishable. However, cheese lends itself to long-distance transportation than other dairy products due to a longer shelf life. Nonetheless, it requires refrigeration during transit, which increases costs and limits trade to high-quality products that are sold at a premium to consumers that are less price-sensitive and, therefore, willingly absorb high transit costs. The volume of the global cheese trade has been steadily increasing, although the value of that trade has fallen slightly from its estimated high during the reporting period, primarily due to a decline in the price of milk, which has cut into revenue. In particular, trade from Western Europe into the United States and certain emerging markets has been growing. In addition, many of the industry's larger companies have operations that cover a majority of the world. For example, Savencia Fromage and Dairy, previously known as Bongrain SA, has production and sales subsidiaries in every continent except Australia. Meanwhile, Lactis, Bell Group, and Arla are based in Europe but have extensive global operations and generate a significant portion of their revenue from overseas markets. Significant mergers on an international level, such as Lactis' acquisition of Parmalat or Arla's merger with Milch Union Hefele and British Milklink, have further boosted inter-country cheese manufacturing ownership over the past 5 years. These companies are also expanding distribution and manufacturing into less saturated markets, especially in Africa, South America, and Asia, which is expected to continue to boost trade over the next 5 years. So now let's take a look at Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces give us a way to evaluate how Kraft Heinz is already doing in the present environment. It's a holistic strategy framework that focuses on how you can build a sustainable competitive advantage in the food industry of South Africa. Whether that's in retail, convenience stores, restaurants, or local shops, the 5 forces can be used to develop a strategic position and explore profitable opportunities for the consumer goods sector. Buyers want the best offerings available while paying the lowest price possible. The smaller and more powerful customer base in South Africa has higher bargaining power with a higher ability to seek increasing discounts and offers. So how can Kraft Heinz tackle the bargaining power of South African buyers? There are many ways you can do this, building a large base of customers in the region to reduce their bargaining power and provide an opportunity for you to streamline your sales and production process. Another way you can tackle the bargaining power is by rapidly innovating new products or versions of products that are popular in South Africa. Coming up with new products limits the ability of the buyers to have bargaining power on all product lines in a company. New products reduce the defection of existing customers to competitors. The next force of the 5 forces is the bargaining power of suppliers. Since Kraft Heinz and Pioneer Foods has a large base of raw material suppliers, they can decrease margins for you by negotiating higher prices from firms in the food major diversified field. This lowers the overall profitability of your company. So how can Kraft Heinz combat the bargaining power of suppliers? First, you must make sure you are building an efficient supply chain with multiple suppliers and work with Pioneer Foods to reevaluate the distribution network in South Africa. Then you must experiment with product designs using different materials. Again, this points back to innovating new products so that when one raw material price goes up, you can shift to another option. Lastly, do some research on developing dedicated suppliers whose business depends on you, creating a scenario where third-party manufacturers have significantly less bargaining power. Next is the threat of substitutes for products or services. You have to think about what consumers will be buying instead of mac and cheese or putting on their hot dogs instead of ketchup. The threat of a substitute product is high if it offers a value proposition that is uniquely different from the present offerings. How can we tackle the threat of substitute products in South Africa? Well, first, we can focus on the customer by being service-oriented with your products. You're not selling a mac and cheese dinner. You're selling a family meal with smiles around the table. Understanding the core need of the customer rather than what the customer is buying. You need to get back to the heart of your company. Make tasty products that people actually want to buy and eat. That consumer at the footy game is not putting ketchup on a hot dog. He's adding that extra brew to his snack at the game. Make an emotional connection with the consumer. Increase the switching cost. So the next of the 5 forces is new entrants, who in the food major diversified category bring innovation, new ways of doing things, and pressure. We must compete through providing new value propositions to customers and build economies of scale to manage those challenges. By innovating new products and services, Kraft Heinz can bring new customers and give old customers a reason to come back to your products. Building economies of scale can help lower the fixed cost per unit and building capacities and spending more money on research and development rather than cost cutting to save money. New entrants are less likely to enter a dynamic industry where you keep defining the standards regularly and discouraging new players in the industry. The last of the 5 forces focuses on existing rivals. If the rivalry among the existing players in an industry is intense, it will drive down prices and decrease the overall profitability of the industry. To tackle this rivalry among existing rivals, Kraft Heinz can build sustainable differentiation in its new product, build scale so that it can compete better, and collaborate with Pioneer Foods to increase the market size rather than just trying to survive in a small market. So next, let's look at a SWOT analysis. Let's evaluate Kraft Heinz in light of the South African market. As you know, a SWOT analysis is a structure used to evaluate a company's competitive stance. The Kraft Heinz value chain is part of a larger value system of the industry that includes companies either upstream, such as suppliers, or downstream, such as distribution channels, or both. The value chain model has broadly 2 categories of activities, primary and support. The first primary activity is inbound logistics. These activities of Kraft Heinz are associated with receiving, storing, and distributing the inputs of the products. It includes warehousing of physical products, material handling, as well as architecture to receive and store customer information for Kraft Heinz. You have also outsourced most of your inbound logistics activities, which require adequate inventory control, proper handling of raw materials, lower costs, and strong manufacturing. Next is operations. Kraft Heinz is recently trying to streamline operations around the world. Operations are activities that help the organization transform raw material into finished products. It is very broad because of the variety of products that you handle. Outbound logistics are activities that distribute the finished products to channel partners and final buyers, including scheduling, distribution network, wholesalers, and retailers, order fulfillment, processing, and warehousing. Outbound logistics have 2 primary categories of distribution: non-perishable product lines that are bottled and canned, and frozen perishable product lines including pies, sausage rolls, dough, etc. Kraft Heinz must process orders on time, stockpile management, report on time, and have solid distribution to succeed in this activity. In South Africa, CVIA conducted an in-depth supply chain and value assessment in 2018 to evaluate improvement strategies in Kraft Heinz warehousing strategy. Clinton White, managing director of CEVA South Africa, explained, buy-in from top management in Kraft Heinz was an imperative prerequisite for the success of implementation and ongoing smooth operation of the project. During our preliminary confidential interviews with staff, operational problems and issues were identified, which required to be addressed and overhauled. For example, there was an inefficient application of transport between Johannesburg and Cape Town, which was costing the company dearly, as not only was there an inordinate number of transport contractors, over 30, but also in many instances trucks were returning to or from their delivery destinations empty, resulting in costly, futile trips. Control tower and 2 bulk facilities were proposed, and there was a new focus on specific final mile distribution to retail. Marketing and sales activities create a means through which the buyer can buy a firm's products. For Kraft Heinz, this includes sales force management, pricing, channel selection, marketing, advertising, and promotion. Kraft Heinz runs this activity with quality products, a pricing strategy, and high brand equity. Services for Kraft Heinz don't first appear at surface level. Kraft Heinz provides after-sales services and maintenance for successful consumption of their products, including customer service and focus on sustainable farming, technical assistance, and training. The firm infrastructure support activities at Kraft Heinz consists of activities such as planning, legal services, finance and accounting, general management, and quality management. Firm infrastructure activities at Kraft Heinz support entire value chains through the scope varies given that Kraft Heinz is a diversified company even within the industry. For example, the finance and planning at Kraft Heinz are managed at corporate level while quality management, accounting, and legal issues are managed at business unit level. In an environment where each organization is striving to become a learning organization, human resource management is key to the success of any organization. HRM support activities include recruiting, skill assessment, hiring, selection, people planning, training and development, and compensation at both business unit level and corporate. Human resource management affects competitive advantage in any firm, but in some industries it is a defining factor. For example, in the consulting company's HR, it's the main source of competitive advantage. Technology supports almost all activities in modern-day organizations. In the technology industry, it has become a source of competitive advantage. Technology development at Kraft Heinz may include activities such as selection, field testing, component design, process engineering, and feature design. Procurement activities at Kraft Heinz include activities that are undertaken to purchase inputs that are used by Kraft Heinz value chain. It doesn't include purchase inputs themselves. Purchased inputs may include raw materials, supplies, machinery, laboratory equipment, office equipment, and buildings. Like all other value chain activities, procurement also employs technology for things such as procedures, vendor management, information systems, and supply chain partner qualification rules and ongoing performance evaluation. Now let's analyze Kraft Heinz activities through a VRIO analysis. Kraft Heinz supply chain has a temporary competitive advantage in South Africa. You will become more sustainable in your supply chain once it is optimized for the market and works well with Pioneer Foods. With Walmart's acquired Massmart with 400 stores in South Africa, Kraft Heinz can work on improving its supply chain in South Africa and distribute through these locations. As seen from the case study with CEVA, Kraft Heinz still has some work to do to optimize your supply chain. Kraft Heinz has competitive parity when it comes to raw materials. Some are imported and some are grown in South Africa. Most competitors have the same access to raw material suppliers as your company, and they're easily accessible. The branding of Kraft Heinz has a sustainable competitive advantage because it is widely known and recognized worldwide. Other companies may copy the visuals of the brand, but the original branding itself is sustainable. Kraft Heinz product portfolio is extremely sustainable in its competitive advantage. There is no other company that matches the diversity of food product lines that you have, and it cannot be imitated. If done correctly, your marketing strategy is a sustainable competitive advantage in the long run. Right now, it can use some revamping for re-entering the market, but with the branding and portfolio you currently have, the marketing strategy can be lasting. So how can you make your activities more sustainable? Let's first focus on your internal capabilities. The Kraft Heinz company already has the internal capabilities in place to thrive in South Africa. At the core, you have zero-based budgeting, revenue management, and management by objectives, profitable sales growth, best-in-class margins, and a superior return on capital. As discussed before, your brand portfolio is unmatched and not easily imitated. It is world-class and has taken decades to build. You also have the data-driven capabilities across different mediums that you have been developing since the 2015 merge. You already import a significant volume of products, but you also have the capabilities to manufacture locally at factories in Wellington and Atlantis in the Western Cape. Working with Pioneer Foods gives you the capabilities to reach customers across South Africa with a brand they already know and love. So here is a deeper look at the variety of interests and lifestyle attributes of people who engage with your brand. As you can see, there's the food and cooking interests, the holiday enthusiasts, the engagers, and the lifestyle attributes. So let's take a brief look at the Hofstede analysis for the U.S. compared to South Africa. We are comparing the U.S. analysis with South Africa because Kraft Heinz is in the U.S. as a home market. South Africa scores 49 on power distance, which means that people, to a larger extent, accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs no further justification. Hierarchy in an organization is seen as reflecting inherent inequalities. Centralization is popular, subordinates expect to be told what to do, and the ideal boss is a benevolent autocrat. This is similar in the U.S. The fairly low score on power distance, in combination with one of the most individualistic cultures in the world, reflects an American premise of liberty and justice for all. Both managers and employees expect to be consulted, and information is shared frequently. At the same time, communication is informal, direct, and participative to a degree. This society is loosely knit, in which the expectation is that people look after themselves and their immediate families only and should not rely too much on authorities for support. There is also a high degree of geographical mobility in the United States. Americans are not shy about approaching their prospective counterparts in order to obtain or seek information. In the business world, employees are expected to be self-reliant and display initiative. South Africa scores a 63 on masculinity and is thus a masculine society. In masculine countries, people live in order to work. Managers are expected to be decisive and assertive. The emphasis is on equity, competition, and performance, and conflicts are resolved by fighting them out. U.S. is similar, in which they score a high 62. The combination of high masculinity with the most individualistic drive in the world means that Americans show their masculine drive individually. South Africa scores 49 on uncertainty avoidance, and thus has a low preference for avoiding uncertainty. The U.S. scores below average with a low score of 46 on the uncertainty avoidance dimension. There is a fair degree of acceptance for new ideas, innovative products, and a willingness to try something new or different, whether it pertains to technology, business practices, or food. Americans tend to be more tolerant of ideas or opinions from anyone and allow the freedom of expression. At the same time, Americans do not require a lot of rules and are less emotionally expressive than higher scoring cultures. NSA uncertainty because of 9/11 goes along with this. With a high score of 63 in indulgence, it is clear that South Africa has a culture of indulgence. People in societies classified by a high score in indulgence generally exhibit a willingness to realize their impulses and desires with regard to enjoying life and having fun. They have positive attitudes and place a higher importance on leisure time, doing as they please, and spending money as they wish. The U.S. is similar in that they have a high indulgence score of 68. The states work hard and play hard. Drug addiction is higher in the states than in any other wealthy country. South Africa, with a score of 65 in individualism, is a fairly individualistic society. This means that there is a high preference for a loosely knit social framework in which individuals are expected to take care of themselves and their immediate families only. However, on the other hand, the U.S. is much higher in individualism than South Africa. Going back to power distance, the U.S. is highly individualistic, especially because of the values of liberty and justice for all, with the ownership of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or property. A low score of 34 on long-term orientation means that in South Africa the culture is more normative than pragmatic. However, the U.S. is even lower with a score of 26. Americans are prone to analyze new information to check whether it is true. They have a can-do attitude, and American businesses measure their performance on a short-term basis, with profit and loss statements being issued on a quarterly basis. This also drives individuals to strive for quick results within the workplace. So now let's start on our strategic analysis of Kraft Heinz. Should Kraft Heinz replicate or adapt? Replication in the past failed, so it is key to adapt in the future. You must evolve your current brands, optimize them, and expand into the white space of opportunities. You can make products specifically for pioneer foods, giving them a relative advantage of local knowledge. Just as Li and Feng did in Asian markets, Kraft Heinz must continually evaluate suppliers, seek out new production partners, adapt to the market context, and align to the high-touch needs of consumers. From the book Winning in Emerging Markets, authors Canon and Palpu explain that the firms that have been the most successful in building businesses to fill institutional voids have been those that understand that business models cannot travel seamlessly to emerging markets. These companies adapt effectively and remain open to experimentation. Kraft Heinz must accept a flexible business model by auditing its capabilities, inherent advantages as a global food industry leader, and its ability to acquire new capabilities due to its size and resources for innovation. The key is to make sure that international brands can continue to adapt locally to be in a position to drive performance. Each country has its own unique challenges, whether it's positive or negative. Organizations need to be able to adapt to change because at the end of the day, we have to put our consumers first. In evolving iconic brands, Kraft Heinz must innovate into fresher, less processed ingredients to address consumer tastes, revitalize category trends, and protect the core consumer. Optimizing your portfolio means developing products that expand existing categories and push the boundaries on what exists already. In turn, this means expanding into white space through innovation into new categories. So next, let's talk about competing alone or collaborating. So should you compete alone or collaborate? Through past collaboration, Kraft Heinz worked with Pioneer Foods. Kraft Heinz needs to consider other collaborations that could bring strategic opportunities for growth. Working with Unilever in the market of South Africa would make perfect strategic sense. Even though Unilever rejected an offer from Kraft Heinz for a merger, there could still be a strategic solution with a smaller deal. As Raphael Moreau, food analyst for Euromonitor International, thinks that a scaled-down version of the deal would go well ahead. She says, although there was little incentive for Unilever to accept this initial merger offer, Kraft Heinz and its investment vehicle 3G Capital's willingness to pursue a deal could ultimately encourage Unilever to seek to offload some of its food brands, to which Kraft Heinz would seek to apply aggressive cost reductions. While creating synergies in sauces and soups could be a rationale for such a deal, a combination of Heinz and Hellmann's and mayonnaise could struggle to be given approval by competition authorities. Its search for a mega merger could see 3G Capital and Kraft Heinz settle for a smaller deal under which group synergies could be more achievable. Pioneer Foods is the obvious choice for collaborating in South Africa to gain local insights and knowledge. They are one of the largest South African producers and distributors of branded food brands, embedded in strategic objectives. One of their strategy goals is to have strategic alliances with global brands embedded in strategic customer management, collaborated to win in modern and traditional trade. Kahana and Palpu from winning in emerging markets make it clear that partnerships between developed market-based multinationals and emerging giants are also a key vehicle for the transfer of ideas between market contexts. Speaking of market context, should Kraft Heinz accept the market context or change the market context? Kraft Heinz must change the market context to make significant inroads in South Africa. According to Intellidex financial analyst Oren Tambu, this is something not peculiar to Kraft Heinz alone. A number of international brands have failed to dislodge the local ones. I don't think it has been aggressive in marketing its products. To change market context, Kraft Heinz can focus on innovation for the South African market and a marketing strategy overhaul. Changing the market context allows you to circumvent voids through adaptation, working proactively to fill voids with new products or induce other businesses to do the same through contracting. Based on Hofstede's analysis, South Africa is an indulgent culture and the people prioritize fun. It also has one of the world's worst education systems, and Kraft Heinz can change the market context of education in its re-entrance. Through a Kraft Heinz Education Center, the company can offer world-class education opportunities to the local market. Should Kraft Heinz re-enter the South African market now or wait? They've already exited before. so they should wait this time. The best plan of action right now is to wait and work behind the scenes. During the 2-year agreement in Pioneer Foods, Kraft Heinz can dive deeper into the data they collected while in the market, working on developing a strong marketing strategy to reintroduce back in, actively work on, and research for new products, and design, plan for, and build their education center in Cape Town. You need to analyze your performance and opportunities, plan and align your strategy and tactics, communicate with a evidence-based holistic category strategy, track everything through rituals and routines, and troubleshoot through contingency plans where needed and when necessary. So next, let's talk about our project schedule for these choices that we have chosen. Here is a Gantt chart for our strategic plan. We will go into more detail in the following slides, but for now, all you need to know is the start dates, the end dates, and the duration. First, you must create a South Africa development team. The start date will be April 1st, and the end date will be April 20th. They will continually working on the project throughout. However, this specific task will be creating the team that will lead the development of this entire project. Secondly, you need to train your development team and executives. So you will have executive and team training from April 22nd to April 30th. Next is extending your partnership with Pioneer Foods. This will be from April 30th to May 6th. Then will be joint venture meetings with Unilever or any other players you think could be strategic alliances. This will start May 2nd and then end May 8th. After that, you'll want to start designing the Kraft Heinz Education Center, the KHEC. This will be from May 1st to July 1st of this year, and then you'll design the program while you're also working on that. Then you will build the Kraft Heinz Education Center from July 1st until next year in January. Then after that, you will want to interview and hire staff while you're still building from August 1st to October 1st this year. So let's go more in depth about strategic choices. Our priorities for this strategy is to adopt an ecosystem mindset. Venkat Alterli, Mikas Dates, and Nicholas Hinke of McKinsey Analytics explain that you need to broaden your view of competitors and opportunities so that it's truly multi-sectoral, define the ecosystems and industries where change will be the fastest, and identify the critical new sources of value most meaningful for an expanding consumer base. In essence, you must refine your self-vision by asking yourself and your top team questions such as what surprising, disruptive boundary shifts can you imagine and try to get ahead of? And what can we turn our physical assets and long-established customer relationships into genuine consumer insights to secure what we have and stake out an advantage over our competitors, including the digital giants? That shift will necessarily involve an important organizational component, and leaders should expect some measure of internal resistance, particularly when existing business goals, incentives, and performance management principles do not accord with new strategic priorities. It will also, of course, require competitive targeting beyond the four walls of your company, but resist the impulse to just open up your acquisition checkbook. The combinations that make good sense will be part of a rational answer to strategic questions about where and how your company needs to compete, playing out on an expanding field. Competing effectively means both collecting large amounts of data and developing capabilities for storing, processing, and translating the data into actionable business insights. A critical goal for most companies is data diversity, achieved in part through partnerships, which will enable you to pursue ever finer micro-segmentation and create more value in more ecosystems. Information from telecommunications services players, for example, can help banks to engage their customers and make a variety of commercial decisions more effectively. Deeper data insights are finally beginning to take ideas that had always seemed good but often fell short of their potential to turn into winning models. Companies that lack strong customer connections run the risk of disintermediation and perhaps becoming white label back offices or production centers with limited headroom to create or retain economic surplus. Data to customize offerings, content to capture the attention of customers, and digital engagement models to create seamless customer journeys that solve customer pain points can all help you build emotional connections with customers and occupy attractive roles in critical ecosystems. Lastly, companies need to be more and different kinds of partners. In at least a dozen markets worldwide, including Brazil, Turkey, and several countries in Asia, where in many respects data are currently less robust than any other region, we're seeing a new wave of partnership energy aimed at making the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Regardless of your base geography, core industry, and state of data readiness, start by asking that what white spaces you need to fill, what partners can best help fill those gaps, and what gives and gets might be mutually beneficial. You'll also need to think about how to create an infrastructural and operational framework that invites a steady exchange with outside entities of data, ideas, and services to fuel innovation. Don't forget about the implications for your information architecture, including the application programming interfaces that will enable critical external linkages, and don't neglect the possibility that you may need to enlist a more natural integrator from across your partnerships, which could include a company more appropriate for the role, such as telco or a third-party provider that can be more effectively connecting non-digital natives. And don't assume that if you were to acquire a potential partner, you'd necessarily be adding and sustaining their revenues on a dollar-for-dollar basis over the long term. So next, let's talk about change management. What does it look like to go from an idea to implementation? First, we want to keep an open mind and change our mindset. The management team needs to focus on what matters most, your core value propositions, your distinct competitive advantages, on what matters most, fundamental human and organizational needs, and the data and technologies available to tie them all together. Bring a training and development program in to train the executive team. Brainstorm how you can move forward in this world of digital networks, consumer lenders, food and beverage providers, and telecom players, which will eventually simultaneously coexist, actively partner, and aggressively move to capture share from one another. Learn how to adopt an ecosystem mindset, follow the data, and build emotional ties with customers, and change your partnership paradigm. Next, schedule a meet with Pioneer Foods to extend the partnership. Give yourselves 5 years to rework your strategy and prepare to re-enter the market ready to win. In the process, develop a strong marketing re-entrance strategy with innovative ideas and products. Kraft Heinz is in the number 1 position for powdered beverages in South Africa. How can that be innovated and adapted to local tastes? As of 2019, the top 3 trends impacting flavored powder for beverages are new product launches, growing preference for online shopping, and innovations in packaging. What is a South African way that would fit the culture? Think about size, shape, new materials for packaging, etc. As you can see from this chart graphic, that chocolate-based drinks and flavored powdered drinks market is expected to grow at 10%. How can you take advantage of that growth? I know when I studied abroad in Australia, there was a huge powdered drink beverage called Milo, and it was powder that you could put in milk or you could put in water. And I know a lot of South African things move from Australia, and Australian products move to South Africa. So Milo might be big in South Africa. Research that, find out more about that, and see if you can create a Milo product in Kraft Heinz. Next, you need to set up a meeting about joint venturing with Unilever back into South Africa. Use Massmart as a launching point for distribution. Lastly, you need to design and build an educational program and center for training and higher education. Create an education center in South Africa because people are a critical element to flawless execution. Use trust, alignment, unique measurements, rituals and routines, transparency, and ongoing talent development. This can include a culinary school and training for talent management in the market. In Pursuit of Prosperity, an episode of a podcast with McKinsey Global Institute Director Jonathan Waltzel and MGI partner Anu Gavkar about their recent research on emerging economies that outperform others. They explain how pro-growth agendas and successful companies propel the economy. Watzel explains that in a high-performing economy, what we see is an alignment around productivity, income, and demand. These are the three aspects that drive economic growth. As you can see in the chart, you can increase productivity with these activities, translate productivity into strong and inclusive growth income, and then also boost demand. And it's a continuous cycle. Gavkar goes on to say how to use the labor supply of a market. Take the labor supply that exists and upscale it to make it relevant and productive in the context of what you're doing. Watzel replies saying, it's how well they include and allow for everybody, the farthest flung pleasant to the inner city worker, to get access to a value chain, an industry, a competitive sector, which then builds their skills. That flexibility and essentially allowing for the geographic mobility, but also allows for cross-industry mobility. From this research, we can learn that educating the labor supply to drive growth is essential. Again, the educational system is hurting in South Africa, so let's work to change the market context to help the economy. Now let's talk about process improvement. Because we must move fast within the 2-year agreement with Pioneer Foods, I have chosen to talk about project management. Who's on the team? A new team will be created to implement this new corporate strategy. Each member will have a critical role in creating an effective execution to win in South Africa. Director of this team will be the zone president for Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Under him or her will be the leading director who will attend all meetings and report back to the director once a month. The leading director will also lead meetings and help in the hiring process. Other team members include a distribution route efficiencies manager, a marketing manager to work directly with the marketing department, a social media manager for creating and executing a social media plan, along with the global branding, a local South African with cultural insights and local knowledge, a data analyst that works directly with the data department of Kraft Heinz, a training and development manager that works with an external company that brings in executive training for this team, and an education center project manager with a curriculum writer and team of interns. The dates will be May 1st, 2019 to May 1st, 2021, and we'll continue on to that 5-year plan that I was talking about earlier. So you need to rethink, invent, integrate, prioritize, and synthesize, track it all, and redo it over and over in a lean process improvement model. So all I have for you, you can see all the references here on this slide along with the notes. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I really appreciate your time. I'm a JBU MBA International Business student, the Director of Public Relations for Dr. Diana Wright, a local doctor here in Northwest Arkansas, and I freelance editing videos and producing videos, and I love to travel the world, and that's why I'm interested in international business. Again, thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your day or rest of the night. Thank you. So that's in the lean process improvement model to illustrate how to improve processes within Kraft Heinz. The lean process improvement model is known for the value and efficiency it brings for a continuous improvement of an ongoing strategy. Identify the opportunities from this presentation you want to move forward with. Come up with a plan for corporate strategy execution. Consider alternative channels of distribution and strategic alliances. The most preferred fast foods in South Africa are chicken, pizza, and burgers, respectively. How can you tap into that market to gain market share? From a strategic alliance with Nando's to host your ketchup. Create your own peri-peri sauce to be sold around the world. Create an alliance with Hot Dog Cafe. How can you make sure that every one of their customers knows and loves your brand? Other successful local restaurant chains include Dorrego's, Barcelos, and Chicken Licken. Bring brand awareness and mental availability to your brand through integrating into the fast food sector. Form a working relationship with Walmart's mass market stores. Guerrilla marketing is also a great option. So now, by recognizing its internal strategic factors like strengths and weaknesses, and external strategic factors like opportunities and threats. Kraft Heinz has many strengths that contribute to success so far. The merger of the two brands in 2015 created an opportunity to form a powerful business with numerous businesses under the same roof. This made you a strong global leader in the food industry. Your strong market position in a world of robust product portfolio Your strong market position in the world and robust product portfolio in various food categories makes you a market leader with a core competitive advantage over your peers. You have a strong presence in over 70 countries with more than 200 brands, distinguished brand categories, and hard-to-beat brand recognition. You have a global footprint with products that are perfect for all occasions, at home, in restaurants, and on the go. The merger of Kraft Heinz created a global powerhouse in the food and beverage industry. The Kraft Heinz brand has more than 80% awareness in 14 international countries, where Heinz has a presence in 13 of these. Lastly, Kraft Heinz has a strong distribution channel with a presence in 190 countries due to the merger. Your products are sold through many different channels, including hotels, restaurants, hospitals, healthcare facilities, and government agencies. Having a wide global footprint enables you to have a high presence in developed markets and an increasing presence in emerging markets. This dilutes business risks of over-dependence on a few markets and gives you the ability to tap into opportunities in emerging markets. Speaking of opportunities, let's talk about the ones that Kraft Heinz has been presented with. The food service industry is ever growing with a high demand for healthy food, ready-to-eat options, and baby food. The industry is expected to grow rapidly in the near future due to improving lifestyle and rapid urbanization. There has been increasing global health awareness across the globe, resulting in increasing demand for nutritious and trans fat-free products. Kraft Heinz should be embracing new products by expanding its product portfolio to include more nutritious products. The global baby food market is growing with the increase in incomes and changing lifestyles and is expected to grow at 8% in the coming year. Besides the limited shelf life of Kraft Heinz products, you must face the frequent product recalls that lead to the soiling of the company's image and customer confidence in the brand. In 2015, you had to recall wrapped slices and turkey bacon due to the possibility of adulteration. Kraft Heinz also faces the high costs of raw materials in its products, which are required in large quantities. The prices of these products are increasing year after year, such as dairy products, sugar, potatoes, meat products, tomatoes, nuts, etc. Cross-currency transaction rates can also be a weakness when looking at the large quantities of packaged materials and natural gas required to run facilities. In November 2016, an advertisement for Heinz beans was banned for displaying the unsafe use of tin cans in its Lean the Hashtag Can Song campaign. Things like that affect the reputation of the company. CNN Business explains that one of the main weaknesses of the Kraft Heinz company is that it needs healthier food options. The biggest problem for Kraft Heinz, the maker of Jell-O and Kraft Mac and Cheese, is that the company hasn't adapted to changing consumer tastes. There's a growing interest in healthier and organic food as opposed to processed cheese and lunch meat. Kraft Heinz faces a few threats in South Africa that are unique to the emerging market. In South Africa, you are a little giant. Phil Roke, CEO at Pioneer Foods, who entered into a joint venture agreement with you to establish the Heinz Food SA in 2003, said Kraft Heinz products had mixed success, as Heinz tomato sauce range had not fared well. Powerful local brands with established market positions and high consumer commitment levels were part of the problem. Worldwide, consumers have been gravitating towards private label products, the lower-cost alternative to national and international brands. In 2013, Switzerland topped the list with private labels contributing 45% of the total retail sales. The U.S. ranked 21 in market share of private label brands, with private label accounting for 18% of the total retail sales, according to Statista. Upward pricing pressure due to increasing Raw materials prices may turn consumers towards private label companies more. Other threats include competitors who have already embraced the healthier food trend. General Mills bought Annie's in 2014, Hershey acquired Skinny Pop, and also bought the maker of Pirate's Booty from B&G Foods last year. And Conagria scooped up Pinnacle, owner of Smart Balance and the Uddy's brand of gluten-free food last year. Food safety regulations around the world have become more strict, and food companies must pass through various food regulation authorities in various countries. This ultimately increases compliance costs. Finally, increasing global labor wages are increasing year after year, which increases expenditures and affects margins. Now let's take a quick look at your value chain from Porter's perspective.